Chapter 4. Survey Research and Sampling. Survey Research. The observation or measurements made during survey research or any other kind of research generate data or information. Major differences between survey research and other methods. As has been noted, survey research does not enable the researcher to manipulate the independent variables, provides less control of the research environment, and therefore is not considered capable of definitely establishing causal relationships. Types of survey studies. Survey research, in particular research problem, and the major purpose of the research, them a formative or exploratory type of survey, may well be in order. Exploratory surveys. Conducted as qualitative research, it can help to clarify concepts. It can be used to establish priorities for future research. Specific kinds of exploratory research surveys include 1. Literature surveys. They are considered to be supportive of the research that follows rather than as research studies themselves. 2. Experience survey also may help to establish priorities for research in the area and to summarize the knowledge of practitioners regarding the effectiveness of various methods and procedures. 3. Analysis of insight stimulating. In the additional exploratory studies, do not provide enough control of extraneous variables, nor should they to primate the testing of a specific relationship. Analytical and descriptive survey. Description surveys are the most common type of survey, and many researchers use survey research methods and description surveys synonymously. Other types of survey. The main different types of survey. 1. Cross-sectional study. 2. Trend study. 3. Cohort study. 4. Panel study. 5. Approximation of a longitudinal study. 6. Parallel sample study. 7. Contextual study. 8. Sociometric study. 9. Critical study. Basic purpose of description surveys usually are to describe characteristics of the population of interest, estimate proportions in the population, make specific prediction, and test associational relationship. However, it tends to lose flexibility. I'm short, it tends to provide a compromised method for studying specific phenomena. Basic steps of survey research and overview. Formulating objectives. The important concern here is that the method selected be precise and to ensure that the data collected will be relevant to the question or problem under study. Selecting data collection techniques. This stage is critical point at which safeguards against bias and unreliability should be introduced. Bias can creep into a study several points, including during sampling and data collection activities, but the desirability of pretesting applies to all data collection techniques. Selecting the sample. The sample library collections might differ from the average collection size of population being sampled, but one could still have reasonably accurate or representative sample for most purposes. Collecting the data. The collector should be supervised closely, and checks should be established to help ensure that they are accurate and that their data are unblazed. Analyzing and interpreting the results. The process of analyzing the data gathered basically involves coding the responses or placing each item in the appropriate category, tabulating the data, and performing appropriate statistical computations. Survey research designs. Research has been applied in library-related research for a variety of purposes that were based on survey methods and that they consider to be successful. Survey research costs. Survey research tends to be relatively inexpensive. There are 10 recommended guidelines for including survey costs include the following. 1. Shorten the length of data collection. 2. Reduce the number of follow-ups. 3. Limit pilot or pretesting to a small number of participants. 4. Shorten time spent developing data collection instruments by adapting already existing instruments. 5. Make the instruments as short as possible. 6. Use monetary incentives to encourage respondents. 7. Minimize staff costs. 8. Shop around for least expensive supplies and equipment. 9. Reduce the number of survey activities. 10. Minimize the amount of time activity takes. Sampling. Sampling is often one of the most crucial steps in survey research. Basic terms and concepts. It is important to have an understanding of the following basic terms and concepts related to sampling. 1. Universe. It is often used synonymously with population and is essential a useless term. 2. Population is the aggregation of units to which one wishes to generalize the results of a research study. 3. Population stratum with collection of at least 1 million volumes or with a budget of a certain size. 4. Element an individual number or unit of a population. 5. Census typically a sample of the population rather than the entire population is surveyed. 6. Sample. The concept of representativeness is crucial to sampling and will be treated in greater depth later. 7. Case. The total number of cases in a sample is usually designated by lowercase. 8. Sampling frame. It is often used interchangeably with population list. Types of sampling methods. 2 basic types of sampling methods: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling suffer from important weaknesses. Samples are usually easier and cheaper to obtain than our probability sample, and for some purposes. Accidental sample. There would be little or no preferential selection of respondents. The researcher might query during some other time period and end up with quite different responses. Chouter sample. The Chouter sample methods also attempts to ensure that the different elements are included in the sample in the proportions in which they occur in the population. Snowball sample. It is an appropriate method to use when members of the population are difficult to identify and locate, such as migrants and homeless individuals. Purposive sample. The researcher would be making the assumption that such a sample would be reasonably typical of all university libraries involved in developing electronic services. Self-selected sample. A self-selected sample is a group of cases, usually people who have essentially selected themselves for conclusions in a study. Incomplete sample. Not originally intended to be a non-probability sample, in effect becomes one. Probability sampling enhances the likelihood of accomplishing these objectives and also provides method for estimating the degree of probable success. Systematic sample. Not every combination by elements has an equal chance of being drawn. Cluster sample involves dividing a population into clusters or groups and then drawing a sample of those clusters. Sampling in library use. Literature on sampling in libraries regularly provides thorough information and guides on estimating percentages. Non-random sampling to achieve the highest possible accuracy. Summary. The strength of survey research is in answering questions of fact and in assessing the distributions of the characteristics of populations.